Simcha, Simcha, celebration of life.
Hey, how's your week been? Well, it's about to get even better. Welcome to Simcha, a celebration of life. I'm your host, Jared Epstein. Today, we look at signs and symbols within Judaism, see how children learn through music, and further explore the meaning behind the 10 plagues in Egypt. From the very beginning of the Jewish story, signs, symbols, and songs have played an integral part of how we identify ourselves and how we present ourselves to the outside world. Batya Bricker explains the role of signs and symbols in Judaism.
I've been very interested in looking at signs, symbols, and songs as a representation of both the Jewish people, the Jewish nation, and the Jewish state. And so we created a course that would explore that. What started off as a 2-hour exercise became an 8-hour exercise because the material is so fascinating. The idea is, what is a sign? What is a symbol? Well, we use these in everyday lives. You know, emojis, emoticons, the stop sign. All of these are signs and symbols. It's a shortcut. It's a hack to communicate a lot more information, but in one short, sharp symbol. That's what a symbol does. It means, though, that in order to understand symbols, we need to have a common point of reference. So both you and I have to understand that when we see red with white letters across, S-T-O-P, even if we can't read, we understand we need to stop. If you see a smiley face at the end of your WhatsApp message, you know what that means, or a hug. You understand what that means. It means I love you, you're supported, I care for you, but in one short, sharp symbol. So points of reference are very important, and points of reference change. So what might have represented something in the past no longer represents that now, and vice versa. That's what I've been exploring, and that's what we're going to explore in the next 4 episodes of signs, symbols, and songs. What symbols represent, what they may have represented before. What are symbols? Are they just visuals, or can other things be symbols? And lastly, for me importantly, are signs and symbols a Jewish thing? Do we have a source for signs and symbols in the Jewish tradition? So I've looked back at the Tanakh, at the Bible, as the first point of a sign or a symbol, and just to see, does it come up? Is it a Jewish thing? Do we use signs and symbols? And the important thing here, and what we see throughout the Bible, is that a sign is not just a representation of an idea. A sign is a connection between God and his people. That's what a sign is. It can be visual, but more importantly, it's a signal of the covenant. So for example, when I say signs and wonders in a biblical context, we all think about Egypt, how God took the Jewish people out with signs and wonders. And when you see the word used in the Bible, it is ot. The word is ot. Ot signifies a symbol, a connection between God and his people. And whenever you see the word ot in Jewish literature, you know that that's a sign, but not just a visual sign, a connection. So for example, the Shabbat, the Sabbath. The Sabbath is described as an ot. You see the word ot, so you know that the Sabbath is also a signifier of the connection between God and his people. Brit Milah, circumcision, is considered an ot, described as an ot. So again, it's the connection between the Jewish people and God. So that superficial idea of just a beautiful logo, for example, is not something based in Judaism. The idea that a symbol can signify a much deeper relationship, spiritual relationship, is what is prevalent in Judaism. There are various symbols that have been used from the beginning of time until now. For example, the dove with the olive branch, that comes from the story of Noah. At the end of the flood over the world, he sends out the dove to find a branch, and when the dove comes back with the branch, it is a sign, again an ot, that God has forgiven his people and that he will rebuild the world. So it's again much more than just a visual symbol. But that symbol has really become the universal symbol of peace. And I wouldn't say that that's become a Jewish symbol. A much more enduring symbol is that of the menorah, the candelabra, that would sit in the Mishkan, which was the portable temple that Moses created when the Jews left Egypt, but then later in the temple itself. And the menorah signified God's presence within the Jewish people. It had a candle in the middle called a ner tamid, a light that would stay alight at all times. And when you saw that light, you knew that God was with his people. And we know this because later the Talmud describes about 40 years before the temple is destroyed, it mentions how things had declined and how the people had distanced from God. And it says, and the ner tamid, that permanent light on the menorah, no longer burnt. And that was a sign that God and his people were apart. So again, it's a symbol that has signified a relationship, a spiritual relationship between God and his people. Now, how did this menorah look? What did it look like? We all have different visions of it. And in my mind, I had always thought that it kind of has a base and then rounded branches. But there isn't really any historic basis for that. I'm not actually sure where that came from, perhaps from paintings or other representations of the menorah. Rashi says that the menorah actually looked like it had a base and then it had triangular, very straight branches that would branch out. But the reference that we use to what the menorah looked like is from the Arch of Titus. And we know that on the Arch of Titus is the depiction of the sacking of the temple. It's the sacking of the temple, and you see the Roman legions taking the loot out of the temple, and one of those pieces is the menorah. And that is a combination, in fact, of both ideas. It's both rounded, but also it's like hexagonal. And that, in fact, is the historic reference that we use. They have since found other examples, archaeological examples, of the menorah looking like that. So we're pretty sure that that's what it looked like. And the menorah that is on the coat of arms of the state of Israel looks like that. And that is why.
Music has always played an important part within Jewish prayer, commemorations of festivals, and celebrations of life events. What better way is there to expose children to such events than by teaching them in a fun and entertaining manner? We join musician Johnny Sklar and the children of King David Victory Park Primary School for a morning of music.
So the program began, it's been going for many years. We've always had Hebrew singing. It's been a very important part of our ethos as a school, as a Jewish school, to incorporate Hebrew and Jewish song. And what we decided to do was bring a more contemporary edge to it, something that the children could relate to. So Johnny Sklar, who's a very well-known musician in the Jewish circles, I contacted him, I asked him, he's a wonderful guy, he's relatable, he's funky, he's a brilliant musician. And I thought our students would absolutely love him. So I called him, I asked him, would he come in and take our Hebrew singing? Johnny agreed, and the rest was history.
When the children heard that Johnny was coming this week, some of them already knew that who he was, and they knew that he was coming on Friday, and that it was going to be a very special Shabbos ring. They were beyond excited, and that excitement couldn't be contained. It became infectious, and the other children, their interest was piked, so they all wanted to know who Johnny was. So when the time came for us all to go through, to go and meet Johnny, there was absolutely no dilly-dallying. Everybody lined up, and they went straight through. When they went inside and they saw him, It was just pure excitement. From right in the beginning, they wanted to dance, they wanted to get up, and they wanted to join in with him. It was absolutely amazing.
The kids, you walk in, definitely the youngest ones, the smaller ones, you walk in and they're chanting your name, they get so excited, so it gives you a lot of energy back. I've always found these things, I never thought I would be doing this, but it kind of came my way, and whenever these things come up, you always find that, whatever you're putting in, you're getting more back, you get a lot of energy from these little ones, yeah.
Music is vitally important for children simply because it is part of their being, the innate being, from the heartbeat in the uterus all the way through to when they start hearing music all around them, and they incorporate it into their learning. If you think about all the songs that we teach the children in maths, in English, the ABC, the 1, 2, 3, our quarter-fisher life. Music is another language, but every soul can understand it.
Oh, first of all, the kids waiting for the whole week for Johnny to come. And they absolutely love it. They learn so much. Most of the songs that they sing, it's from the Siddur. Siddur, it's the Jewish prayer book, and from the Psalms or from the Torah. So, yeah, we teach them as songs. They feel like they're singing songs, and for us, they're learning a lot about Judaism.
We believe that song connects to the soul. There's no doubt about it. Music speaks to the soul. And our students, the more they're able to learn and be exposed to, we hope that those Jewish songs remain with them and get embedded somewhere in their Jewish psyche, in their soul, and something that will stay with them forever.
They're extremely excited when Johnny comes. You can see he just instills this amazing energy in them, and this love for Shabbat and this vibe of a Friday morning in the classroom is amazing. They get very excited about Friday morning singing.
So the truth is, we don't have much of a syllabus per se, and we usually will teach all the kids the same song. But what we found is that as children get older, they find singing a bit more trying. Not all children connect to it. So we focus primarily on the younger years, where they're enthusiastic, where they're interested, and they all learn the same songs, which is very powerful, because what it means is when we have assemblies or special commemorations, our students all together, you've got 300 plus students all singing the same song. It's very powerful. So it's a very unifying experience learning the same song. So not different syllabus, but uniformity. Up until the older grades, where we find that the students, those who want to sing, sing, those who don't, we're not going to force them to.
I'm going to sing something and I want you guys to copy me. Let's first say the words. The words are Hinei Matov, Umanaim, Shevet Achim, Gam Yachad. Okay, so you're going to copy me, okay? And then we're going to do this. Look, some of the input comes obviously from the teachers, because they're still running the class, which is great for me because I don't have to be a disciplinarian or anything. I can just arrive with my guitar and teach the songs. So sometimes, we make it relative to the time of year, if it's the Chagim or there's something happening in Yom Ha'atzmaut, whatever, something happening within the Jewish calendar, then we relate it to that. So Pesach songs, Purim and Rosh Hashanah and all those things we incorporate. Obviously also being a Friday, we do a lot of stuff about Shabbat. And then some of it's just general Hebrew, like for them to learn the language, which the Hebrew teachers bring into the mix.
Part of the Jewish study, the kids learn Hebrew, they learn Jewish study, and on Friday they learn all the prayers through music with Johnny. So it is part of their learning. But it's so much fun that they don't always feel like they're actually learning, but they learn a lot.
King David Victory Park is a very musical school and very artistic kids, and you know, very creative. So they thrive on the plays and singing and all that kind of thing. So they often have, you know, if it's something that relates, I suppose, to the Hebrew calendar or to the Chagim or to an achievement that the kids have reached. You know, like finishing learning their benching or davening, things like that, then always come in as well when they, you know, they invite the parents and grandparents or whatever it is. We come in and accompany them for that as well.
Music is amazing for learners. It's soothing to them, it creates such a different dynamic to their day, and it brings joy to them. So especially for our learners, we find music is a great way for them to be in a happy place and a better place.
They love jumping up and dancing, and what's so amazing that if they hear the song on a radio later or the Chai FM, which is the Jewish radio, or if they hear it at home, they respond so nicely to it. And the parents give us feedback, how much the kids learn and how much they know. So it's wonderful.
The interpretation of the Bible and its stories is a time-honored tradition in Judaism, one that dates back over 2 millennia. By applying different lenses to the old, time-worn Bible tales, we can uncover startling new layers of meaning. Rabbi Liebenberg shares with us another interpretation of what the 10 plagues which afflicted the ancient Egyptians represent.
At the Passover Seder, we go through the story of the 10 plagues. And the way that it is written in the Haggadah, in the special book that we read at the Passover ceremony, it divides up the plagues into 4 groups. 3 groups of 3, and then a 4th group of 1. And the question is, why does it do that? So first you have the blood, the frogs, and the lice. That's one group. Then you have the wild beast, the pestilence or the boils. That's another one. Then you have the hail, the locusts, and the darkness. That's a 3rd group. And then the last group, which is just one plague, is the death of the firstborn. Why is it divided up in this way? And if we look at the biblical account of the plagues, we'll see that this begins to make sense. In each of the first of those groups, when God tells Moses to go to Pharaoh to warn him, he doesn't just bring the plague, first he must warn him. And where does he go to warn him? He goes to warn him at the river Nile. Every morning, Pharaoh would go down to the river Nile. The river Nile was considered to be a deity in Egypt. He would go to the river Nile, and Moses would come and warn him. He would say, well, you know, there's going to be a plague of blood. That would be in the first group. In the second group, he would say to him, you know, there's going to be this plague of mixed beasts. Or in the third group, there's going to be a plague of hail. Or in the 4th group, there's going to be the killing of the firstborn. So for the first of each group, he warns him, but he warns him at the river. The second of each group, he warns him, but this time he goes to his house. He goes to the palace of Pharaoh and he warns him. There's going to be frogs in the first group. In the second group, there's going to be pestilence. In the third group, there's going to be the plague of locusts. And so it goes in each of the groups, in each of the subsets, when it comes to the second plague in each of those subsets, he goes to his house. And when it comes to the third plague in each set, there's no warning whatsoever. The plague just happens. So you have, for example, the plague of lice. It just occurs. Or the plague of boils just occurs. Or the plague of darkness. There's no warning whatsoever. What is going on here? What does this mean? And the famous sage, the Maharal, tells us as follows, that there was more than one purpose to the plagues. Of course, the purpose of the plagues was to bring the Egyptians to their knees and to rescue the Israelites from Egypt. But there was another purpose. The other purpose was to show the Egyptians that God is the God of the entire universe. They believed in a complete panoply of gods. There was a God of the sky, there was a God of the sands, there was a God of the river, there was a God of life, there was a God of death. God wanted to demonstrate there is only one deity, there's only one power. And he did it slowly, incrementally. First of all, he began with the lowest level. Those are objects that live below the ground. So for example, the water, the frogs, the lice, they live below the ground. And God was trying to demonstrate to Pharaoh, I am the God of that particular region. So first he came to the river and he warned him. Then he had more mastery, power over him, so he was able to come to his house and warn him. And by the third plague, it was absolutely clear that God was in charge of that particular area, that particular region. No warning was required. Then we move on to the second region, and this is the actual surface of the earth. So, for example, the fact that there's pestilence, or there's mixed beasts, or there's boils, that affected everything that lives on the surface. So God now had to prove he wasn't just the God who was in control of the things under the surface, but those things that were living upon the surface. And so the same pattern went, warning him at the river, then he has more mastery over him, he can warn him at home, and then for the third plague, there's no warning required. And then we move to the third region, and that is not that which is under the ground or on the ground, but that which is above the ground, which lives in the heavens. The barad, the hail which came down from the skies, the arbe, the locusts, or the choshech, the darkness, which switched off the lights of the sun and the moon. And again, we see the same pattern. God wanted to show, I'm in control of the entire world, not just the lower regions, not just the middle regions, but I'm even in control of the skies, even in control of the heavens. And this had been proven to Pharaoh. But there was still one more level where Pharaoh had his doubts. Maybe God wasn't in control. And what was that? The highest level of all, the actual soul of a human being, the soul, that he could take the soul of the human being. And that was the fourth group, which contained only one plague, the killing of the firstborn. And he was warned about it. And he was told that, yes, this is the God who controls everything, not just nature, but even the soul of mankind. And that is why in the Haggadah, in that famous book that commemorates the Pesach Seder, we read about the way in which the plagues happened. Not just that they were in some type of a random order, they were in a particular order to show the Egyptians that God is the God of all of the universe, of all of nature.
That's another episode of Simcha done, just like that. As always, we'd love to hear from you, so go ahead and send us a Facebook message. Yes, you, on your computer. From me, Jared Epstein, and the Simcha team, we wish you an inspiring week ahead.